Great. So what we've decided to do as a collaboration project for 2021 is get a few Think Movement folks to kind of describe what they do, meld those skills with somebody else, and then present this combination of, skills, if you will, to a younger population. And did you guys have middle school or high school? Middle
Middle
school?
school.
Middle school. Okay. So we're looking at the, in the States, it's the very precarious middle school, but typically grades are going to be like 10 to 13 round, maybe 12 to 14. Okay. So with further ado, this collab project, I'll turn it over to these guys, Zeynep and Fanny.
Cool. Yeah, so we have middle school kids, about 12 years old, and we started kind of discussing where are they in their kind of psychological development. And we were thinking back of like, where were we when we were 12? What was going on at that time? And so we kind of came to a few conclusions or like a few thoughts around that in terms of like, one is how much it can vary. Like it seems like 12-year-olds, they can be kind of still in this thing of like playing around, having fun, that kind of thing. And then you have some of them that have moved on to more like being a bit more self-conscious. There is a lot of emotions going on, and that kind of thing. And I know Zeynep had a supervisor that she was talking to, so maybe you could dig a bit deeper into that stuff.
Yeah. So I talked to my supervisor to ask the question about like in terms of psychological development, like where would the 10 to 13, 14 years old would stand? What would be the main concern in terms of the psychological development? And he actually gave me a pretty good idea. I was thinking about like this age is, like Fanny said, it's like a transition between being a kid to becoming a teenager, kind of like preparing to be an adult. So what he said that at this age group, kids start to have a lot of urges, intense urges of like anger and envy. And and he actually made the distinction between boys and girls. And he said that boys would have more, like erotic impulses, and then they'd have to deal with anger and guilt around it, because the first direction of these erotic impulses would be going towards to the mother and the sisters, because they are the closest ones. So they have to deal with this anger and guilt around it. So they would have to direct their attentions to the girls outside of the house. And for the girls, again, they have to deal with a lot of erotic impulses that are coming in. But then with girls, it manifests as they want to like show up, like they want to be seen and being liked, and like then they start to like dress up and like maybe a little bit inappropriately, like to draw attention, etc. So so erotic impulses being in the center, these are the things that how they manifest themselves in real life, so to speak. So the main concern would be to help them to develop friendship So if they can learn to develop friendship and work together and, like care for other people and kind of like support each other, they have a good chance of going through these phases in a healthier way. So the friendship developing would be the first phase of, like developing deeper relationships in later life, in terms of like, a deeper level of friendship, and then of course a love relationship.
I love this. So as I hear this, you start out first with who you're trying to serve. So you're like, okay, these middle schoolers, and you guys work with adults, right? So you're like, what was that? Since you, again, you don't have a kid population that you work with, you're like, okay, what's the first frame of reference? Me as a 12-year-old, right? What was that like? And then you jump to like the academic, like the mentor, like who I'm assuming it's your psychotherapy mentor.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And you're like, what are these kids going through at this time? You identify like the puberty and the need of this group, which is like, how do I relate to others? Because like you said, this is where all the social things happen. So you recognize that the need is social, that there is like a relational social need, which is so interesting to me, because if I had to walk into a middle school classroom, I would be like, what do they like? So it would be, so it's just such a fascinating, and again, because it would be like, what are they naturally doing? And then how do I use that to kind of gauge into? So I just love where this is going. If I could back up just a second, and if each of you could kind of describe your skill set and as what it is that you do, like what is your realm in the coaching, teaching, guide, working one-on-one with people generally world. So if I started with Fanny.
Well, I guess I teach a lot of playful stuff in a way. It's a lot of like, how can I use my body? I do a lot of handstands, crawling on the ground, that kind of stuff. But I kind of try to use it in such a way that people go into their body and they feel their body and they start like connecting to their body more and kind of go inwards a bit. And so, yes, it's a lot of strength and mobility and, building the confidence to do things and feeling capable in doing these things. But I guess in that process, it is a lot about like recognizing what restrictions I have at the moment. What does it feel like? Is this a smart thing for me to do right now? And kind of go inwards with those kind of questions. So I guess that's a brief explanation of what I do.
Yeah, so so basically playful internalization.
Yeah.
Right. Like again, if I'm just trying to come up with a quick, okay. Yeah. So would you have that, which I relate to? And then Zeynep, if you could kind of, again, what's your thing that you offer?
I'm just a simple physiotherapist.
But of course, not at all, because you have this mental, physical realm.
Yeah. So, so I work with pain and injury, and I am trying to help people with pain and injury to, help themselves. I guide people into what is the root cause of their problem that they're having, and then work with them either physically if it's a physical problem, or psychologically if it's a psychological problem, to like help them.
Okay. So both of you are someone who tries to get them into their own body to understand themselves and figure things out.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Pretty much.
Awesome. Excellent. Just again, in two different realms, if you will, about why they would come to you. One pain, one more for play. Great. So we've got these kids who need to understand social and relationships. Okay. what's the next step? How do we meld the things? How do we give them that through our lens of expertise?
Yeah. So I guess we've spoken about like the challenges, and I think what you were bringing up before is like, if you walk into the classroom and you go, what do they do and what do they like? We have had a few discussions around this, Zeynep and I, and trying to bridge the sort of, it's not the gap, but the kind of relation between, you know, what do they like at this point in time, but maybe also what they need. And I think that is going to be really challenging in a class like this, because it's like they might not necessarily, not everyone will like what we present potentially, because they might feel like, you know, I've gone past this, I'm not a kid anymore, I don't want to play, I want to, you know, sit on my phone, or, you know, I want to, you know, dress up, do all of these kind of things. But some kind of conclusions and like intentions that we put together was that we think that team games or team sports will be quite helpful, because it will build the friendship that Zeynep was talking about. It will build relationships. If it's certain games with tasks where people need to work together with other people, they're obviously going to learn that aspect of it as well. And we kind of said to keep things really simple, because there is a lot of kind of confusion probably going through in these kids' heads and stuff, like with going through the transition of from a kid to like through puberty and all of that stuff. So that's kind of like intention, purpose, taking responsibility, but at the same time feeling seen is something else that we spoke about in regards to this. It kind of help them grow into adults and like allow them to be.
Yeah, you bring up a ton of stuff. Bridging what they need and what they like is already a difficult skill, because again, if you imagine, we'll be conservative and say you have 30 kids in this class. Like you're saying, there's going to be a percentage that is like above it. There's going to be a percentage that is more juvenile. And then there's going to be the middle saying, well, where do I go? Or maybe I don't want to leave here. So to kind of appeal to all those folks is very tricky. So I like it being simple. And the thing about teams and partners is you basically, as a teacher, you assign a friend. Like, and you could do this the whole time, and you could like, right? And people are going to see that and be like, what's wrong with you? Which they don't want, but you do. It's like, okay, like teacher said, we have to work together. So we in some way have to kind of know each other. Excellent. I'm curious how, because playful games is cool. I get it. People like to play. But I'm curious how you might, specifically Zeynep, how might you add in the, maybe not so much pain element, but how do I feel? Am I ready for this? Is something holding me back? Can I recognize it? Do I just pout? Like, how might you bring some of your stuff into this situation?
Wow, that's a hard question. I believe that these kind of like awareness type of work with kids, I don't think they work like they do in adults. So I would avoid all the interventions that would, like that might create some superficial understanding of the feelings and what's going on with your body, because I believe that kids, they got it naturally. So they just got it. I mean, like, so that's why I'm kind of against planned trainings with kids, like like gym type of exercises with kids, I think they kind of intervene with their natural developmental process. So I would be on the side of avoiding all intentional, aware, mindful stuff, that they bring their attention to their body. I don't think they need that. I think they're already with their body.
Interesting.
Essentially, yeah.
Awesome. Fanny, do you agree?
I think I do, but I don't. I feel like I don't really have enough like observational kind of experience around this to kind of like, obviously I've been a kid myself, but I don't know that I have necessarily spent the time to kind of think back on this aspect of it. And also I have not taught kids, so I haven't really seen things in action. And like from an outside point of view, I think it makes a lot of sense what Zeynep is talking about. I quite like the idea of like just letting them be, just like, try your hands at things and see what happens. But potentially at a certain age that you start asking specific questions that kind of poke maybe a thought or an idea in their head. It could be something like, what did that feel like? Or, something like that. But it might not necessarily be like what Zeynep was talking about, like very structured and like talk about awareness and mindfulness and feel the hand go here. And, like that seems a little bit overkill for a 12-year-old. So
I like it. Yeah. This age tends to be, kind of taking what both you said, where they start to put the masks on. Right. Again, you look at elementary PE and they're like being a tree and just like hugging each other. And there's no, right. It's just like, I'm going to be me and I'm going to be you. And if I want to play with you, I'm going to come over there. If I get like hurt in whatever way, like emotionally, physically, then, I might going to pull back, but then there's another friend over there. And if I want to, I'm just going to start crying. Like there's all this kind of rawness. And middle school is where they start to put the brakes on things and the masks on things, or, oh, I should look like this, and oh, I should dress like this, and oh, I should talk like this. So I really enjoy the process of like, at the very least, let's like delay them having to put the masks on. Right.
Yeah,
When I think of this, I think of, and I'll kind of toss it back to you, Zeynep. So they're doing a game that you set up. And let's say that there is a group of 3 that are like, I'm not doing this, right? And that reaction hasn't paused the rest of the class. The rest of the class is like, it's in it because they're like, whatever. But there's 3 that are kind of hesitant. And let's say that they are into the, I'm an adult, maybe they start to dress a little, again, that whole desire thing. So how might you handle these 3? Would you ignore it and pay attention to the rest of the class? What is the, I know I'm putting on the spot, because again, like these are all like snapshots of my 18 years as a teacher. So with that, I know that you don't have that experience, but that's a situation. How might you relate to that?
Well, the honest answer would be like, I have no clue.
Okay, fair.
I have absolutely no clue. Like, I don't have experience with that age, especially not with a whole class. And like, I am sure that I wouldn't like ignore them. Okay. But I want to believe that if I am, or whoever the, like that responsible person of that class is, like present spiritually, I suspect that anyone would be like avoidant and, like hesitant to, like be a part of the group. That's what I want to believe.
Okay. I like it. You're like, in my world, nobody would be hesitant. It's such an
Yeah,
excellent.
like, I mean, no, I'm not saying that like in my control. I don't know, but I mean, my experience with the, like 19, 20 years old, and like, I'm not sure if it's that different because they are also teenagers. And if we consider teenagers, I mean, they do distract easily in the classroom. But like my experience throughout this year with them was like, yes, they do tend to distract. They do tend to like be disrespectful, not intentionally, but like they started to talk and chat with each other, and like take a look at their phones and distracted. But like somehow, I guess I gave them the sense of that I care about you, like very strongly. So whenever I was like mad at them because they were like,
Outcast.
yeah, outcast. So they were very like upset because they, like broke my confidence in them, I
They
guess.
disappointed you.
Yes,
Mm.
they were upset, and they were like bringing me coffee and like apologizing. And
Apples.
I remember one time I was like trying to like tell them something, and they were just talking, and I was like, I just stopped and I was like, okay, the class is dismissed. And I just sat down at my desk, and 40 kids, like those 40 kids were like in their chairs. There was like not one sound in the classroom for 10 minutes. Like
That's a long time.
yeah, that's a long time. I was like shocked. I didn't expect them to like do that, like, but they were like that. So I guess when you give them the sense of that you care, you are there for them, like like when you give them this sense, I think they are being more collaborative.
Okay.
And yeah,
The relationship between student and teacher is generally what gets them to stick with you.
Yeah, and that's certainly not a verbal like communication thing, but they know who cares.
Okay, I like it.
But I'm gonna ask you, what is your experience on that one?
Very similar.
Okay.
I will give you my take on this situation. I want to get Fanny, like, so Fanny, same thing, same situation. There's a group of 3. I'm not even gonna give them a gender, but there's a group of 3, and they're like, nah, we're not gonna do this. They, in your mind, they could either say this out loud or just show you behavior of that. So what would your response be?
Well, Zeynep and I were talking a little bit about this before when we had discussions around it. And I think something that I would kind of lean towards is what Zeynep was talking about, building the relationship and get them to understand that I care, I see them, I'm here, kind of thing. But then I guess practical things that I would do would be to kind of like, okay, put your phone in this box. Can you still see me?
I could hear you. My screen of view is frozen, but I could still see.
Oh, let's see.
That's all right.
Hang on, give me a second.
No problem.
This does that sometime. Let's have a look. It does not want to work.
If there's an issue, perhaps leaving and coming back might be an option.
Let me just see. I think there is like a glitch in this cord that maybe makes it problematic. Should I try to go out and come back
Yeah,
maybe?
let's see if that works. If not,
All right.
we'll have the audio, no problem.
All right, coming right back.
Okay. We were right on the practical. I was like, oh. Let's see, I'll hear that ding. And I like your answer, Zeynep, a lot. I love it. It's about the general thing, but I'm gonna think about what you might actually do in that situation. So you listen to, so,
I would actually, yes. I would actually ask like, why?
perfect. You would go over there and engage them in conversation.
Yeah, why?
Got it.
Why you don't want to do it? And like, and this is something that I do in my classes. Like, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Don't force yourself to do or be in something that is uncomfortable for you. So that will be an option.
Awesome, which is a reflection of that care.
Yeah.
Right. Perfect. Okay. Excellent.
All right.
Yeah, you were going to get into the practical.
Yeah, so I think I would have a rule of them, putting their phones away. That would be kind of the first thing, to set up some kind of expectations, I suppose, for the class. Put your phone here. You're not looking at that during the session or during the class. But then I think the main thing that I think will be uncomfortable for them, yet really rewarding, is to divide them into pairs or groups of people that they might not normally hang out with. I don't know how they would respond to that, but I know if I do that with adults, they tend to be uncomfortable to start with, but then they enjoy that. I think getting new connections, relationships, get different perspectives from different kinds of people, feel a bit challenged and kind of on the toes a little bit, all of those sort of things. So that's just a couple of kind of practical things that I think that I would do.
Yeah, certainly. The only word that's coming to my mind, and I apologize if it's negatively connotated, is like authoritarian. So this kind of thing, okay, you're not doing what we're going to do. I'm gonna, because again, it's interesting because we all recognize their need to be social, but the way in which they are social primarily is through the phones. Like, that is such an interesting thing. That is taking place on my last final. It was a written final in the gym. And I was like, the only way you're going to fail this final, because it was basically your thoughts on questions, there was no right or wrong, was if you don't answer, and if you take out your phone. That's the only way. And they're all like in this kind of on the square boundaries. And it was so interesting because it's this reflex that they do. The basic thing is, I want you to be bored. I want you to sit there and see what happens when you don't have this kind of distraction, this mental stimulation. And there was a boy who finished, and he reflexively went to it, and he saw that for some reason I was looking at it, but at the same time he went and it was almost like he saw himself like, oh my gosh, that's the only thing I can't do, and I'm doing it. So it's interesting. We understand the social piece, and we know that that's important. We know that that's a need, and yet we kind of try to say which way the social should go. And it's only because of people who have grown up without phones that are looking at this and being like, this is weird, but it's their normal. So I do this thing about how do I remove the phones, but and again, my mind, would this become like a combative thing? Like I can see high school and be like, no, right? I'm not. So again, this, and like you said, when you split them from their power group and put them, now they have to figure out, who am I going to be in this new group? Am I going to be the person I showed and just double down on it? And now I have a new group of people being like, what a weirdo, and so do I mess up all the other groups this way? Or there's all these kind of dynamics that occur. Zeynep, as you were gone, was like, I would just ask them why. And that is kind of what so if there are people who are not with it, those are actually who I pay attention to more versus less. Again, when you get into group sizes of 50, et cetera, there tends to be they're just bad kids. I'm just going to let them be, and I'm going to pay attention. But I have learned to do the opposite. So I would go over and being like, okay, like, so, again, like, why, like, what are you getting out of your phone here that you're not getting with these people, right? What is it about? Or I would ask them, like, what do you see? Like, just observe. Okay, fine, just observe. Are they having a good time? Right? Can you recognize what that is? So again, I would start to ask them questions to get them to reflect on their behavior. And see, and again, with each answer to each question, you will get a little deeper insight into them, whether they're going to double down. And let's say that it's completely this. Okay, what else would you like to do? The only thing you can't do is sit here on your phones, right? So how do you want to interact? Right? Do you see what I mean? Like, this is I'm giving you an option, a way to interact, but you don't want it. It's fine. Now it's your job. And this is what I found is, as soon as you realize now you have to put work into figuring out what to do and doing it, then they're just like, oh, that's so much. And then they'll just be like, fine. Like, then they'll soften, because they, like, again, I'm the bad guy. That's fine. I'm the bad guy, being like, you had to play with each other, whatever that is, or you had to interact in a different way. So in my experience, that is a way. But again, it depends on how the answers to these questions are, when you walk over to them, how do you speak? How are they speaking? What's their body language like? The other thing would be going back to, like, what is it that you need? Because you get, like, again, assuming that they're all three of them are sitting together on their phones, you have your phones all the time, right? Like, this is the chance to do something new and different. Like, what is it that you need? What is in there that you need? Like, do you just need to finish? Okay, fine, message that person, let them know that I said you needed to be away for 10, just let them know. Finish the text, finish the whatever, like, whatever that is, finish it. So it's this idea of, like, again, the relationship of I care. Obviously, whatever they're doing is important to them. So instead of being like, my way right now, let me give them time to finish it themselves and close it off. And I'll just, like, sit patiently there, not in a jerk way where I'm just, like, looming, but I'll just, like, and the ability to wait them out. Because again, this idea, we are able to sit with awkwardness, I think, as adults a lot longer than they are. Mm-hmm. So again, it's a weird, there's psychology and human behavior. It's all kind of built into it. But I really like the way that you guys approached it. And again, because I would say, Fanny, your reaction would typically be a newer teacher thing, where we're taught you must be hard, and then you can, like, back off. That tends to be that realm. Zeynep, I think your approach is definitely into the more I want to know you method, the more of someone who doesn't necessarily, which is like your practice. I don't want to be the boss of you. I want to understand you. And, like, when you do that, when a negative behavior isn't reprimanded, but asked about, that's when people, because they're used to like, no, they're used to being turned and told what to do. So when you ask them about why they're doing what they're doing, that absolutely opens up the relationship a lot more. I've certainly had the specifically bad girl group for whatever reason. And again, just gave them more freedom. And they have come back and they were like my pocket watchdogs. Like, if anybody was, like, I didn't even need to say anything. They would be like, listen, pay attention, quiet. Like, and it was just very interesting, again, how relationships work.
It's interesting that you like that you have this experience, because probably those kids who are being like, avoidant, or like, not want to attend, they are actually probably who needs that connection the most, because they don't get it from home.
Yeah. And the armor. You got to get through the armor, and you don't fight through the armor. You gotta, you turn up the heat, you melt it off with the care. So they're like, oh, this is how it's gonna, I don't have to be this.
And it's hard. And this whole new social media thing and the phone thing, it's a whole new thing that we don't know anything about, because I mean, we weren't born to it. Like I had social media. I was like college graduate when I had social media the first time. And when I had a phone first time, message my friends, I was in like late high school, So that's that experience, that having a phone at the age of 10 and a social media, it's I don't think that we would be able to understand that even if we wanted to. And also, like, I've been meaning to tell you this, Fanny, when we were like discussing that I saw this, I guess I saw it in a social media documentary. Like it is mentioned that like the suicide rates at the age of 11 like peaked, I guess in 2011, like after this whole social media thing was like like peaking. At the same time, the suicide rates were also peaking. That's a whole new area of like issues that we need to deal with. And like, we as just one person who spends 1 hour or 2 hours in a week with them, it's just like, I don't know, I'm not sure what we can do about it, because there is a reason those kids tends to or wants to look at their phone, and like without understanding like why do they want to look at that phone so badly. I don't think there's a way to like, I mean, you can distract them for a couple of hours in your class, but then, I mean, why do they really need to look at that phone and social media so much? There's probably something missing more essential in terms of parenting.
Yeah, that
And
kind of
this
go
makes me so
absolutely.
sad.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I have family members with kids, and and they we're outside, they put the kid on the blanket. This is like not even a 1-year-old, and the kid, if you watch the kid is just like noticing the breeze and the leaves. And the mom comes by and is like, here's your music, here's your phone, here's your lights, here's your thing. And so like this poor boy who like all of a sudden is like slammed with stimulation and lights and music. And then we wonder why they can't pay attention. Right. And again, I don't mean to, I mean, that's definitely a derogatory thing, but that's the thing, the attention. So if
Yeah.
I, as a parent, can go finish the dishes, if I put this thing in front of you, right, I am substituting stimulation for attention. So if that's what I've learned to deal with, like, that's what happens. The phone becomes the identity, because the input, what they put on the phone, they could be their true selves. They could be anonymous. I mean, I heard that, I always ask the kids, like, what are you guys on? And I forgot what the thing of it's called, but it's like this random chat thing where like you have no name, nobody can like what you're saying, but you could just talk with somebody in like India. I forgot what I think it's something called like Havoc or something like that. But that is what the kids, right? Again, I want to remove the mask and just be and just say whatever my instinct is and not have to abide by these rules. And I'm not going to get the backlash for it. And of course it works down, but it also can work up. So when you have media as an access, the identity and how you can behave and what you can say, when you think about growing up, I know a lot for myself, it was, what are the rules? Like, what are the rules? Who am I supposed to be? What do people like? Okay, I'm going to be that. That makes sense. Until you start to be like, well, what? These people don't have any influence, until you start to figure out how to do your own thing. And that wavers from kid to kid too. But yeah, it's deep and intense. And I really appreciate your guys' insight on things. Were there other things that you wanted to kind of pick out? I feel like you pretty much nailed everything.
Yeah, we actually come up with a game.
Oh, great.
That's right.
Present.
Awesome.
And Fanny, would you like to do it?
Well, we came up with this, or we were quite inspired by Zeynep's childhood, actually, and a video that she found of the kind of elastic rope game that we've named it. I'm not sure what it's called actually, but it's basically a game where you are, 4 people or so, and you have 2 people with an elastic band around them, and then you have 2 other people who are doing different tasks. And so the task could be jump over both the lines kind of thing. Could be to jump and press on the rope that's furthest away, and then kind of move on and run around to your turn again. It could be jump and press on both ropes, jump and press down on the rope closest, and then the furthest away.
Okay.
So that's different tasks, and the rope can be at ankle height, it could be at knee height, it could be like kind of below the hip height. So that's different kind of difficulties that you can go through.
Okay.
And the way that it works is whenever you can't make a task, you basically swap with one of the other people. Yep.
Okay.
So it's kind of like we were kind of talking a little bit about like, okay, should you get another turn or maybe 3 attempts or something like that? And then we just wanted to keep it like physical rather than like building up like pressure of like trying to get the 2nd attempt or the 3rd attempt, or we kind of wanted to try and cut out the pressure and like kind of performance anxiety as much competition exactly, as much as we kind of could. So it was just like, okay, if you don't make it, just swap with one of the people standing with the rope kind of thing, and then you basically just go around and you move from one task to another kind of thing.
So it definitely does the simple, right? It solidifies that simple. In the States, there's a game called Monkey in the Middle, where you typically take 3 children, and the 2 outside children pass the ball to one another, and the other one tries to get it. Right. So in a very similar, in a very similar way, this game is working. But the key to making the game work is not to be like, oh, you suck, now you got to be the monkey, like, because nobody wants that. It's to celebrate, like, yeah, you get to switch in now, like, now you get to like to switch it up so that the failing is an opportunity to do something different, which is life, right? And I like that you've got, again, you've got 2 pairs, so you've got 2 friends kind of working. I like that they're literally tethered together. I know it's an elastic band, but they're literally touching. There's literal connection there. I like it. During the course of this, and this is kind of where I'll spin off, would you, because it seems like the teacher is involved in the tasks, like do this, do that, do that. Would you provide an opportunity for them to create their own tasks and challenges? Or do you think you would keep it as like teacher led?
We were actually thinking of kind of, because it's fairly simple. So we were thinking of explaining it, not giving too many like instructions. It's basically like you could even give them a piece of paper to have next to them if they can't remember it. These 4 tasks, it's these 3 levels, that's it. Anytime you don't make it, you swap. So the other person gets the chance. So basically we kind of wanted to explain it and leave them to play and kind of just be the observers. And that's how we envisioned the class going. And
you only step in if you need to.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's exactly letting the kids be kids, letting their play take over. It's celebrating uniqueness. It's celebrating going off the paper. So
it kind of also gives them the responsibility, and it also gives them a chance to work together and kind of encourage everyone in the group and that kind of thing.
And the ownership. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and it is a way of propping each other up. Like, I'm going to do your idea, right? For whatever reason. Yeah, it's great. It's excellent. I love it. Gosh, this was excellent. Any final thoughts or caps to this whole thing? I really appreciate you guys participating, and I love that you had talks. Like, to get folks talking is amazing to me. So any kind of summarizing feelings or thoughts?
I think that it's quite interesting because I have not taught kids and only kind of had that experience from myself thinking back from a very long time ago kind of thing. It's really interesting to discuss this and hear, your input as well, Chris, and obviously Zeynep, who is working on different things to what I do normally, and kind of get that sort of thought process around how are adults and kids around this age different, because clearly there are some things that I've been thinking about how I would do it. For example, with the, dividing people into groups of that they don't, with people they don't normally speak to maybe or hang out with and that sort of thing, which I think from observing works really, really well in an adult group. But kids, like now that you kind of put it that way, it's like, that makes sense. And it's like, it's not something that I would have necessarily thought of unless I had kind of came to that conclusion myself from working with kids or having a discussion like this. So I'm just super grateful that we can kind of talk about these things because it will become relevant at some point.
Absolutely. Awesome. Zeynep, any capping points?
This is just so heartbreaking for me, like as the reasons that I mentioned before. So, I mean, I don't think I would be ever work with kids like you did. So, I don't know.
It is it can absolutely be that way. But then again, the role just for myself that I take is, okay, how do I disrupt this trajectory that I see? Now, I always tell them about, you guys go to the grocery store and you see that old lady and she's waiting for a ride and she just sits there. She just sits on the bench looking at people being in the world. And they can always relate to that because I'm sure that they, like, as they're walking out, they're like, what's that? So this again, it's just these little pokes. So I take great when I think about ownership and responsibility in being like, maybe this is the class and this is the opportunity where we could start poking them into a different direction, or maybe ask them to challenge what the status quo is and the way things are going. Maybe one time they'll reach for their phone and be like, why am I doing this? And right. And maybe that one time will cascade into a few more. And again, not out to change the world, but you could have one influence in one point with one person. And I'm like, well, if that's what I can do, then let's do that. And it's funny how the cascade occurs. So I so appreciate that heartbreak because I've been there. But it's just like to just sit with it and let it be is unnerving to me. It's like, let's see. So I appreciate you guys so much for following through with me and collaborating on this. And I very much look forward to more in the future.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Take care, guys. Have an excellent night. And thanks again.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.